Good morning, everybody. It's time for Dyslexia Coffee Talk. So glad that you could join us today. It's me, Ashley, and Enid, just like it's been for the last few weeks. And we are here to talk to you today about what is the difference between 504 versus IDEA? What are accommodations and modifications? And how do goals come in, or where do goals come into play, and how does that part work? Sorry, we're getting a little almost a 10-minute late start today.
Yes, that is, we, as Ashley is very good at planning and organizing, we meet a half hour early to get all of our technical kinks out and to make sure we're on the same page. And today was one of those days where everything with my computer crashed. And as I was trying to get back to Ashley and trying to get on, I just wanted to share that I had so much adrenaline pumping through my body because I don't want to let you down. I know we tell people that it's going to be at a certain time. And so I don't, as the person who's conscientious of that, that caused me to have a lot of adrenaline and stress. And it probably gave me a little bit of cortical inhibition, which made me move a little slower and, oh my gosh, and I couldn't, get things to work. So I bring that up because that is what so many of our students are going through on a daily basis.
Agree.
And I luckily have you. You're a very sweet person. You gave me the mutual regulation that I needed to not totally freak out. So instead of being like, well, we can't do this, you're being late and all that, you were just like, okay, you helped me through it. And so our students don't always have the self-advocacy or that person even to just be like, it's okay, we'll get through this. And so when adrenaline shoots through the body, students need to get that adrenaline out. The body needs to release that adrenaline. So students will do that in many, many different ways. And many of the times just seeing a task that they perceive as difficult will create that adrenaline shooting through their bodies.
Yeah. So
I actually call it school-induced anxiety. So I just wanted to share that just to start really quickly, because we're going to talk a lot about that today with the 504s and anxiety in these kids, where it's not necessarily showing up in grades. Mm-hmm. But yeah, as an adult with emotional regulation skills and my good friend Ashley here to help me mutually regulate, I'm okay now. But a lot of these kids hold that in all day long, and that's why sometimes they come home and they just release it at home because they have to get the adrenaline out somehow. So.
And I remember, so October of last year, I interviewed Faith Borkowski, and that's stored on our page. And Faith is actually going to join us next week.
Right, yeah.
Balanced literacy versus structured literacy, which is so exciting.
So exciting.
I think we started that live almost an hour late, because right before we went live, the internet crashed where I was.
Of course.
And I spent an hour just trying to connect to the internet.
Right.
And I was completely freaking out. And Faith was being so sweet about the whole thing, because I'm texting her and I'm just like, I'm from my phone going, I'm just mortified right now. Oh my God. She was like, deep breaths, calm down.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't have a student coming. It's going to be okay.
I love it. That mutual regulation piece is so important, because when the adrenaline is pumping, we literally go into that flight, fight, freeze sometimes, mm-hmm. where we can't critically and creatively think. And that's that cortical inhibition where you're just like freeze. And so when you have somebody help you mutually regulate, you're like, oh, okay, I got this. I can do this. And so, yeah, that's super valuable.
It is. So, but we're going to leave that one there because we're trying to cover a lot today. And I want to try to wrap up a little bit early to try to be respectful of everybody's time, since we got a late start today. But, technical stuff, that happens. That's why you and I get on early.
I know, right? Yeah, things happen. And that's the thing, is I think it's important also to give ourselves grace.
Yes.
And say, and teach our students that, that things are going to not always work out the way we hope, but to give ourselves grace and just, okay, let's just keep moving forward, do the best we can. So
absolutely.
Thank you for your grace this morning.
I'm happy to help. I've had no sleep too, so it's easy for me. So we're going to talk about the difference between 504 versus IDEA. So on the Dyslexia Initiative blog, we posted a a blog I can't talk. We did a blog post yesterday, which really kind of breaks down 504 versus IDEA.
You did a blog post.
Yeah, but I did it on DI. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, but it was written by you.
It was.
Yes. So thank you for that, because it was very well written.
Thank you. And we needed to talk about this because this is one of the biggest questions we get. Parents truly, when you're first kind of entering the fray, it's hard to be able to tell what the difference is. And unfortunately, a lot of our schools try to push our dyslexic kids onto 504 as opposed to IDEA.
Yeah. Can I say something really quickly about that? That has to do with grades. It's that simple. So if a child is at grade level, that's when they want to put them in a 504. So if a student is, that's typically when they'll put them on a 504 rather than an IEP, or if they're right approaching grade level. And so that's where that's like a rule. Like if they're at grade level, we'll give them a 504 to give them extra support, or as it was first designed, which was as a medical condition. And they were, 504s are supposed to be for a medical condition. So, right. Yeah. So the grade thing, that's where it gets tricky because these kids are stealth.
Yeah. And, that's Section 504. And you just brought up a good point. Section 504 is part of the Americans with Disabilities Act. 504 is an accommodations law. It's why you have, not Section 504, but the ADA is why you have handicap parking spots in a parking lot, why you have wheelchair ramps, handicap stalls in the bathroom, et cetera. And that's just a very minor example. Mm-hmm. I like to use those specific examples because that's usually what most people go, oh, okay, I know what that law is.
It's visual. Yeah.
Sorry. But 504 is specifically an accommodations law. So a lot of schools, when they are managing 504 under dyslexia, they're providing services too. And if you have a really great dyslexia department head, if you've got a super supportive district and they're investing in the right programs and they're doing remediation to fidelity for whatever program it is that they're using, then that's fantastic. That's very far and few between, though. But it's really important to note that 504 is accommodations. Then you have IDEA, which is a special education law. It stands for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act.
Which means, really quickly, which means two different funds. So one is a regular ed fund and a regular ed function, and one is a special ed fund and a special ed function.
Correct. But IDEA is accommodations and services. So in getting remediation, IDEA is the thing that sort of protects that remediation because it has pretty good language about that you do need to be doing a program to fidelity, that it gives the parent a lot of authority in the process because you have a guaranteed seat at the table. On 504, you do not have a guaranteed seat at the table. Apparently, my son is joining Coffee Talk today. You have to hear some here.
Hi.
You're making the dogs cry.
I love it. He made me smile.
I'm actually really surprised he did that.
I love it. I'm glad he did.
He doesn't like to be associated with the dyslexia community. So really. And all three of our dogs are in kennels right here, so they're crying.
Well, this is real life, right?
It is. So, okay, I lost my train of thought because he was dancing.
One thing I want to jump in really quickly about that when I brought up funding. So although IDEA has never been fully funded, and that's always been an issue, it has more funding than 504. So anytime anything comes down to where's the funding, there, when there isn't really any funding for 504, not as much is put into that as well, in everything from training to, everything that would come with funding.
Right. So where where as advocates, we try to push back is because a lot of our kids are identified late. They're behind their peers from a grade level reading perspective. And IDEA is kind of the best way to go in those cases. So one of the things that we talked about in in the blog post yesterday is, and there's no scientific proof of this, but he's back. Please don't do that. That makes a lot of noise. Love you. Please go play. Seriously, we're live on the internet right now. Please go play. And stop popping that. Thank you. I love you. This isn't going very well today.
You know what, though? Again, I think what's important, Ashley, is that we wanted Coffee Talk just to be kind of real and natural, and you know, so that it's just to talk about dyslexia in a comfortable way. And now we have, you know, that's happening. It's real life.
It is. So I'm trying to wrap up this thought. I swear I will do it.
Yeah.
Is IDEA is services and accommodations. 504 is accommodations. 504, you have no guaranteed parental rights within that process. IDEA, you do. You have a seat at the table. Nothing can happen in your child's education without your expressed consent. 504, they can change accommodations, modifications, everything. They can even terminate 504 at any given time without your consent. You do not have a guaranteed seat at the table. Now, a lot of parents are going to sort of react at that and go, but I'm always in the 504 meetings. They don't have to. Consider yourself lucky that you're there. They don't have to. So for me personally, I pursued, whoops, my earring just came out. I pursued an IEP for my child, an individualized education plan through IDEA. But I think the universe is trying to speak to us. I wanted him on that plan because 1, he was really struggling. 2, he was behind from a grade level reading perspective. And 3, I wanted my guaranteed seat at that table. I did not want changes to my child's education that I did not have express authority over. So that was a huge reason for me, at least, of why I pursued an IEP over 504, which is what he initially had. So that's that.
Well, and I think I think it's important that to realize 504, because it was developed for individuals with disabilities and illnesses, it was designed to just put things into place in the classroom to, like you said, a wheelchair ramp, different things like that. So whereas IDEA looks at individual need, and then individual need drives the goal, the goals drive the services, and then with all of that, you have accountability. So you can get a lot on a 504. There's districts that will put almost everything on a 504 that you can get on an IEP. However, it's a weird, sticky thing, you know. I keep getting these cases where, and I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to this, where stealth dyslexics hit a wall in 7th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, middle school around there somewhere. The stealth ones just hit a wall. And so they're getting A's and B's, but they're having that adrenaline and that anxiety, and it's coming out in anxiety for them. And I just had a student the other day. She's on a 504. We're in a 504 meeting, and I had done a little informal assessment and determined she although is getting A's and B's, she does not have segmentation of sounds. And I know that I'll bring this up over and over again about phonological awareness, but if she doesn't have individual segmentation of sounds, which is a critical phonological awareness skill, she needs to get that. And so they usually can't do that on a 504. They don't have in a middle school, they don't have the person to take them, to work with them on it. And so typically you need to put them on an IEP to make sure that they're going to meet that individual need. So now we're taking that student that was on a 504 and we're having her fully assessed and all of her phonological skills assessed again to be put on an IEP so that they can address that need. So.
Yeah. So our technical difficulties are continuing. I'm still here, but my camera is not projecting in this anymore.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm going to keep talking because I'm here, and hopefully this works. If this episode ends up completely bombing, then we will redo it.
That's fine. Anyway.
I'm getting a kick out of the universe's message this week.
Right. Well, yeah. But did that, I mean, kind of summarize just, I wanted to kind of summarize, yeah, what's happening with some of these stealth kids and how they're getting missed.
So let's move on from 504 and idea to accommodations and modifications. So, because a lot of people, they kind of use the two words interchangeably.
I
but
do. I do sometimes because I know, I mean, yeah.
But they are two very different things. Dawn, thank you for telling me that you can see me because I can't see me. But oh, really, thank you.
Well, at least it makes me feel better for my difficulties this morning.
So quickly, accommodations are tools to sort of help level the playing field. Yeah, I see you too. You're cute as well. So that's like preferential seating. That's gosh, I'm all of a sudden like going completely blank. On our website, we have a huge listing of accommodations.
That would be no spelling tests, right? That would fit under there.
Say that again.
No spelling tests.
So that's kind of more of a modification.
That's where I get confused. Okay, yeah. Okay.
So an accommodation is anything like, just gonna read a few off. So preferential seating, reduce visual distractions, repeat clarify instructions, visual organizers, having your test read to you instead of trying to read your test. So, they can pull you aside and they can read your test to you. Extra time. Things like this are accommodations.
Right.
A modification is when the content is altered. So let's say that you're supposed to take a test that's got 100 questions on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
A modification might be that you only have to answer 50 questions instead of 100.
Yeah, that's where spelling test goes. Right.
And you don't have to take a spelling test. So you're altering the content that your child is having to do in some way. You're modifying the content.
Can I say something really quickly about spelling tests? So I have a student, super bright as all these kids are, and I was working with him yesterday, and he says, I get 100% on all my spelling tests, second grade. And he says, I'm really good at it. And I said, okay, what were some of your words this week? And so he told me, and I said, well, let's write them. So he didn't get them in isolation when we did it the next day. So it just goes to show they can memorize words, but it gives a false sense to everyone involved that they're doing well on spelling. So that's why that's important that, maybe it's not, they can still do it because this kid gets so much confidence out of, getting 100%, but it shouldn't be required.
Right. So on our website, we have a huge listing of accommodations. We have them bucketed into everyday basics, homework and test, organization and behavior, materials, assignments, aids, etc., math, grades and standardized testing, and reading, writing, and spelling. We wanted to bucket kind of the accommodations in different places. Yeah. So say your child just has dyscalculia instead of dyslexia. So you kind of don't care about the reading, writing, and spelling accommodations, but the math accommodations would be key for your child. And we just had somebody make a really great comment that they don't know that any accommodations or modifications work if the school staff don't understand what's going on with those. And that's a really powerful issue that happens within our community. And this is kind of a difference between 504 and IDEA again, is if you have under 504 a listing of accommodations, they're supposed to be following those accommodations. Your child is being protected under the American with Disabilities Act. So those accommodations are supposed to be followed.
But very few people are making sure. Because I've been in middle school and high school, I've worked in both. Right. And half the teachers don't even know what's on the 504, and people aren't going and making sure they're following the 504 the way that they would with an IEP. So.
Right. So, and something to bear in mind is your accommodations that are listed on your individualized education plan are not negotiable. Those are the accommodations that you as a team are going to agree to, because the IEP is a contract, as we have said before. Choosing to apply or not apply accommodations from anybody outside of that core group is a violation.
Well, and if there is a violation, they go to OSHA, the Office of Civil Rights.
Yes.
Of course, so that's who they go to if there's a violation in a 504.
Well, you go to the Federal Department of Education, and you can go to the TEA, and you can file complaints both.
Well,
but yeah.
TEA, but everywhere else I know that people file complaints with OSHA. Okay, just want to make sure.
Sometimes I forget that not everybody lives in Texas.
I know. It's okay, I know. But no, just to clarify that, because for IDEA, you would go to the Department of Ed, or 504 would be OSHA.
So, but again, the Department of Education does actually have a link for, so if you go to the Department of Education, you've got a question about your child's 504, and you feel that there are things that are being wrong or done wrong, they have massive amounts of information on how to file a complaint for 504 as well. So their website's really, really good in that way.
But again, the process is easier with IEP. There's more accountability with IEP. It's
Right.
hard to fight for 504, and it just have to be really obvious.
Agreed. And somebody made a great point. They said, "What's our website address?" So it is the dyslexiainitiative.org.
With so many great resources.
Thank you. We've been working really hard on that.
I know. And there's one I still need to send you because I'm.
Yeah. I haven't forgotten.
I know.
So anyway, I hope that helps. That's accommodations and modifications.
Well, I've sat in over 3,500 IEPs. And so it's one of those things where that's a very good distinction you made in the way you described it, because when we're in the moment and doing them, of course, I can figure out what we're talking about. But when I have to think about modifications and accommodations, it gets like those two words get jumbled in my head.
And then, and it does for a lot of people. It definitely did for me in the beginning as well. And then once somebody was like, the accommodation is the tool, the modification is, what are you modifying about the education in order to make it easier to handle? So,
which brings up a really good point that we can talk about another time, that people really need to be careful that their child is not on a modified curriculum. So there's modified IEP, and then there's modified curriculum. Modified IEP says you're competing with your peers. You're basically doing the same work. We're just modifying it a little bit, right? But a modified curriculum, they get different grades. It's not they're not competing with their peers. Basically what they're saying is, oh, he got an A, but he really got a C, or he really got a third grade A at a fifth grade level, right? So they'll even change the content that they give to kids on a modified curriculum. So if they're all reading a book at the fifth grade level, they'll give it to them at the third grade level. That is not, that is a full modified curriculum. And I guess that's a whole other thing, because modified curriculum means you're not on a diploma track. So it's super important. And the due process case we had in Irvine, the child was on a modified curriculum. They were modifying everything, so she wasn't getting it at her grade level. And the parents didn't even know because they didn't inform them that the child was on a modified curriculum, which then the parents prevailed in that due process, because you can't put a kid on a modified curriculum and not tell the parents. However, that happens all the time. And I know we're going over, but we can talk about that another time.
That was good, because I think our last topic will be relatively brief, because we're going to dive into it in future sessions much, much deeper than we are today. And we're going to talk a lot more about accommodations and modifications in the future as well. This particular session is meant to just kind of put some high-level understanding into parents' hands. So,
as well as goals, right? We were talking about doing a whole thing on just
right. So that's the next part. So,
yeah. Sorry.
So the last thing we're going to cover is where do goals come into play, and what did I say? And how do goals work? So you do not have goals in 504. You don't, because again, remember, 504 is an accommodations law, not a services law. Your child may be receiving remediation under 504, but again, that's not a goal-based remediation. this is where, again, you have more teeth with IDEA, is in the contract that is the IEP, you're supposed to set goals. So the team is supposed to be working with your child in order to achieve X, Y, and Z goals. So you and I both know my son's IEP really well. So we'll talk about his goals kind of specifically. So he has a reading goal, a writing goal. We were unsuccessful last year in getting a spelling goal, and they added a math goal, but it's weird that they call it a math goal because it's really, can he read the word problem or not?
Which is a reading goal.
Right. Yeah. So again, the goal is supposed to be that thing that they're collectively striving for, that they're working for, that remediation is supposed to be targeting with your child.
Targeting individual needs. So if they don't have syllables, they need a syllable goal.
Right. So, and this is why we're going to talk about this a lot more in depth over several different sessions, is because there are poorly written goals. There are, and they're not supposed to be doing it, but districts tend to have, a bank of goals that they just conveniently pull out of for your child. That's not individualized, because remember, it's an individual education plan. So it's supposed to be individual to your child, their strengths and their weaknesses. The goals should be aggressive, not simple. It should really be
when they say, "Oh, they can't do that. They can't do that in a year." And I'm like, "How do you know?" Right. You need to set the goal as if you can achieve that. They set these really ridiculous goals, and when we try to get them to set more advantageous goals, they literally just say, "Oh no, we can't do that." So right. don't allow that. Say, "Well, I expect my child could do that with proper support."
Right. Yeah. It needs to be a stretch for everybody. And we did write a blog, or I wrote a blog post on the Dyslexia Initiative, and it always corrects me from we to I, because I try to be very, everybody that's a leader within the Dyslexia Initiative, we're one big team. We all get to take credit for everything together. This isn't my show. This isn't, we are a group. We are a team.
Right.
So we have a blog post on dyslexia. Sorry. We have a blog post on the Dyslexia Initiative called What Does 80% Mean? And that particular post is specifically about those goals within the IEP and what they're targeting for from an achievement perspective. So, you and I have talked about this a lot lately. You had a child recently who they set the goal at 60%. Yeah. My child has goals that are 60%, then 70%, then 80%, with 80 being the top.
We consider 80 mastery. In education, 80 should always be mastery, because you figure everybody can do something 8 out of 10 times, and it's pretty much mastered. I know that's like a B. However, 90% accuracy, obviously, if it's phonological skills, that would be ideal. But 80% accuracy is the very least it should ever be. So keep going. Sorry.
Right. But again, I think in future sessions, we're going to dive into that a whole lot more and try to explain that more. But we wanted to talk about, where do goals fit into the equation? I have had one friend who worked to set up some benchmarks and kind of some goals in their child's 504 plan while they were in the process of converting to IEP. In some areas, she was successful. In other areas, she was not, because that's not the point of 504. So we're going to try to start to wrap up at this point. We had one really good question. And Enid, I think you're the best person to answer this question. How do you argue with school staff who do the evaluations and their standards are not assessing correctly?
Their standards are not assessing correctly. So my guess is that question means that, I don't know by correctly. So the child, they're coming out higher or lower in the standards. I'm not sure.
I'm thinking that they're probably coming out higher than where the parents feel that they should probably be. It's like your scores are borderline, so you're almost dyslexic, but not quite.
So what I have to say to everyone on that really quickly, that I think is the most important, is that If the child is struggling in reading or writing and spelling, there's a really good possibility there's still some holes in their phonological development. So the most important thing for all kids is to have a thorough FAR or a C-top. So a FAR and a C-top are the two best for phonological. Then whoever is the evaluator, you have to ask them to see the protocol. You can't say standard scores don't meet anything on those tests. You say, do they have rhyming? Check the protocol. Do they have syllables? Let's check the protocol. If they don't have any of those skills, then you would help the team develop an IEP that would address those skills. So usually why the child's coming out higher in standards and they're struggling tremendously is because they have phonological holes. Almost, 95% of the time that I see these kids, especially the stealth ones, the ones hitting a wall, what we know from 30 years of research is that or 40 years now, probably I keep getting older, is that if there are phonological holes, the children will hit a wall between 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And when I used to work at the high school and I would get kids and take them in during my lunchtime and work with them on phonological skills, they were all at the 4th grade level. Very bright kids. So I think the most important thing is that happens all the time. The school sees them here, they're down here, and most of the time comes in at their phonological skills, and it needs to be evaluated thoroughly. So if they're on a 504 and that hasn't been evaluated, it needs to be requested that be evaluated. I hope I answered the question.
So she clarified, which is what I was saying, is the kiddo falls within the normal range, and they're assessing so broadly. So unfortunately, we can talk about that forever.
Let me clarify one thing, though, because again, on those two tests, they can come out average and still have holes.
Right. So that's what I was going to say, too, is you don't want to look at the composite score of all of the subtests within the GORT or the FAR or anything. You want to look at each of the individual subtests, because think of it as, this is the example that I've used before, is think of it when you were in school, right? You take a class for a semester. You're only going to get your grades at the end of the semester. There's no grading periods in between, right? Mm-hmm. How many of us have gone into a final going, okay, so all of my grade, I've got A's, B's, C's, D's, and F's. What do I have to score on my final in order just to pass the damn class?
Yeah. So that's my senior in high school right now. Yeah.
So that's what these tests are, is there's a composite score. That's your final semester grade. Mm-hmm. And you have all of these subtests underneath. So you could have, because this has specifically happened with my son as well, you can have really high scores on a whole lot of the subtests, and then you can have one subtest that's like, boom, way down here at the bottom.
Yep.
That particular subtest means there's something significant going on. But if you only look at the composite score, you can paint a rosy picture that's not actually there.
Well, can I just say one thing I've been seeing happening lately that's really bad? I have school psychologists sometimes only testing weaknesses. So what that does is they're supposed to test strengths and weaknesses, because these kids, most kids I work with dyslexia, I believe are gifted with an above average to high IQ. And if you only test weaknesses, you're going to come out really low on this. That she gives a range. She does this, one psychologist was giving a range, not even, but the point is it's really important to be able to look at the strengths and the weaknesses and be able to compare the two. And so if that's not even happening, the kid's not even getting a chance. So it's the IQ score and that it's a thorough IQ score, and that you have a full scale IQ. If you do not have a full scale IQ, you do not have an IQ score. So if they try to give you a composite IQ or something else, make sure, I know we could go off on another tangent, but the point is it's full scale IQ, and they have to have strengths and weaknesses for that very reason, to see where the child can do this really well. But this, especially another really important point, we're going to have a whole show on just Andrew F. And the idea that when you have a kid with 125 IQ and they're performing at like a 70 performance academically, that's not okay. We want them up here.
Right. So, and that's the same with the goals too, is if they have that 100, what did you say, 120 or 125 IQ?
Yes. I
put the benchmark in the goal at 80%. It's not, it's not a valid goal. That child is capable of so much more, and you need to individualize the program to fit the child.
Right. And phonological skills are K1-2 skills. So if they're in 7th grade and they don't have K1-2 skills, the district better figure out a way to give them those K1-2 skills.
Right. So we've been getting a lot of really great comments, and some of them we're going to address individually. But we're at 34 minutes at this point, so I think we should try to wrap up now. I'm really excited about next week because Faith Burkowski is going to join us.
I'm so excited. I feel like I'm so excited.
I absolutely adore
I've
Faith.
been following her for a while and I've never met her. So
yeah. So if anybody can like binge read her book over the next week, Failing Students or Failing Schools, it's amazing. It's a really good read. It's an easy read compared to so many of the other dyslexia books that we have. I flew through the book. I think I read it in 3 days. It's less than 200 pages. I know that. But I had a really hard time putting it down. So I'm looking forward to talking with her. So she's going to come on here and talk to us about the difference between balanced literacy and structured literacy, which is a huge subject this week.
Great topic. I get so many questions. I said I have a lot of board members asking me, the difference and how they can help their reading teachers. So I know there's going to be a lot of people really interested in that topic. So I'm excited.
Well, it's been a huge focus at the IDA conference in Portland right now is why balanced literacy does not work for our children. And here at the Dyslexia Initiative, we have our feet really planted on this. We do not support balanced literacy, whole language, none of it. So
yeah, teaching our best is really a problem because then we have to go back. Faith knows about this because we work with kids and we have to correct their bad habits that they learned through balanced literacy.
Definitely. So again, the name of Faith, I can't say Faith with an apostrophe S. It comes out funny. The title of Faith's book is Failing Students or Failing Schools. I should have put it on my desk because then I would like hold it up and show everybody, but I forgot. So, but thank you for joining us today. I hope that we sort of helped touch on some of the topics and are able to clarify quite a bit for you. Check out our blog. We try to put as much information out there as we can. Like I said, we've got the 504 versus IEP post. We have what does 80% mean, which is specifically about the goals themselves. And we constantly have more content coming, as well as a whole subsection of our website is dedicated to accommodations. And we're constantly adding to our website too. So again, our website is thedyslexiainitiative.org. But if you ever have any questions, you can find the link on our Facebook page because we did tie our webpage there. So you can just check out the page. Thank you, Enid.
And I was going to say, you guys have been busy with the web page and everything. I'm impressed. You guys, I don't take credit for that part at all. I mean, I just so honored to be part of this. But yeah, no, that's crazy to think of how much you've accomplished so quickly.
Well, thank you. And Alicia messaged me this morning and she said, I have some more pages we need to add to the webpage. I'm like, okay.
It is such an incredible team. It really is. I love it.
We're really, really blessed. Our whole leadership team is, some really phenomenal people. We are so blessed.
Very inspired stuff happening behind the scenes. It's pretty cool.
Well, thank you. So with that, I hope everybody has a really great weekend. And remember, again, next Saturday, Faith Burkowski talking the difference between balanced literacy and structured literacy. You're not going to want to miss that one.
Nope, you're definitely not. That's going to be great. All right. Happy Saturday.
Happy Saturday. Bye, everybody.
Bye.